My best friend accused me of being jealous, so I blew up her wedding to a cheater. AITA? I think I just ruined my best friend's engagement, and I'm not even sure if I regret it. Let me rewind a bit. My name is Maya, and Sarah has been my best friend since we were 7. We practically grew up in each other's pockets. Our parents lived a street apart, we went to the same schools, shared embarrassing teenage diaries, survived college roommates, and even navigated our first serious heartbreaks together. She's the sister I never had, the person who knows me better than anyone else, sometimes even better than I know myself. Or so I thought. Sarah met Liam about 3 years ago. From my perspective, it was a whirlwind romance. One minute she was complaining about another awful dating app experience, the next she was gushing about this guy who got her. Liam was different. He wasn't the kind of guy Sarah usually went for. Her exes were always a bit rough around the edges, artsy types, sometimes a little brooding. Liam was polished. He worked in finance, always wore tailored shirts, and had this calm, almost unnervingly composed demeanor. He was also ridiculously handsome, in a classic, GQ kind of way. I remember our first double date with them. Sarah was practically vibrating with happiness, eyes sparkling every time he spoke. I tried to be open-minded. Liam was polite, maybe a little stiff, but he made Sarah laugh, and that was always my main criteria. He ordered her favorite wine without asking, remembered a tiny detail she'd mentioned about a travel dream, and just generally seemed incredibly attentive. I caught myself thinking, maybe this isn't for her. Maybe he's the one who will actually treat her like gold. I really wanted to like him. For Sarah, I wanted to like him. Over the next few months, they became inseparable. Sarah started spending most of her time at his sleek apartment downtown. Our girls' nights became less frequent, then mostly involved Liam being present, or me just listening to Sarah talk about him. I tried not to be annoyed. People fall in love, priorities shift. It's natural. But there was this small, nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Whenever Liam was around, Sarah seemed smaller. Quieter. She laughed differently, too, a little less boisterous, more contained. It was subtle, and I told myself I was just being overly protective or jealous of her attention. One evening, about a year into their relationship, we were having dinner. Liam was on a business trip, so it was just us, like old times. We were swapping stories, and I brought up this ridiculously embarrassing incident from college involving Sarah, a bad fake ID, and a very unimpressed bouncer. It was a classic Sarah story, one we'd told countless times, always ending in hysterics. I started telling it, expecting her to chime in with her favorite parts, but she just went quiet. "What's wrong?" I asked, confused. She picked at her salad. "Liam actually, he doesn't really like it when I tell stories like that. He thinks it makes me sound immature." I felt a prickle of annoyance. Immature? It's just a funny college story, Sarah. We were like, 20. I know, she mumbled. But he's really big on appearances, you know? Like, he thinks I should project a more put-together image now that we're serious. I tried to shrug it off, but something felt off. "Since when do you care about projecting an image, Sarah? You always said that was BS. She gave me a weak smile. People change, Maya. This was the first real crack in my perception of Liam. It wasn't just that he didn't like the story, it was that Sarah was actively policing herself to please him. And it wasn't just stories. Her wardrobe slowly shifted from her quirky, colorful pieces to more neutral, classic styles Liam apparently preferred. She cut her hair, something she'd always resisted, because he'd mentioned he liked shorter hair on women. Each change was small, almost imperceptible on its own, but together, they painted a picture of Sarah slowly fading into a version of herself designed for Liam. I tried to talk to her about it. Gently, at first. "Hey, you seem really happy, but are you happy with you?" She'd always brush it off. "Of course, I am. Liam just helps me be the best version of myself." "But what about the old version? The one that loved bright colors and goofy stories?" She'd get defensive. "You're just jealous, Maya. You don't want me to be happy." That hurt. Deeply. But I backed off, worried about pushing her away. Then came the proposal. It was exactly what you'd expect from Liam, meticulously planned, extravagant, and utterly devoid of anything uniquely Sarah. He proposed on a private yacht, with a photographer hidden, rose petals everywhere, and a ridiculously huge diamond. Sarah was ecstatic, of course. She called me, crying happy tears, sending me photos. I congratulated her, forcing genuine enthusiasm into my voice. I was happy for her, truly, but a part of me felt a cold dread. This wasn't just Sarah getting engaged, it was Sarah cementing a life with someone who seemed determined to sand down her edges until she was perfectly smooth. I tried to be a good bridesmaid. I went to dress fittings, helped with venue research, listened to endless debates about flower arrangements. All the while, the little incidents kept piling up. Liam suggesting Sarah cut back on her hours at the nonprofit she loved because it wasn't financially optimal. Liam gently correcting her grammar in front of friends. Liam subtly steering conversations away from topics Sarah was passionate about but he found uninteresting. It was never overt abuse, it was a slow, insidious erosion. The real shift in my perspective, the one that truly cemented my unease, came about 6 months before the wedding. Sarah asked me to help her declutter her old apartment, which she was planning to rent out. She'd already moved most of her stuff into Liam's place, but there were still boxes of old photos, books, and mementos. We were sifting through a box of old college junk, laughing at fashion choices and bad hairstyles. I pulled out an old photo album. Inside were pictures from our semester abroad in Italy. We were young, wild, and carefree. There was one photo in particular that always made me smile, Sarah, standing on a bridge in Florence, her hair a riot of sun-streaked curls, wearing this bright, mismatched outfit, absolutely beaming, arms thrown wide. She looked so utterly, authentically her. I showed it to her. Remember this? God, we were so stupid and happy. Sarah looked at it, and for a second, her face softened into that old, genuine smile. Then she caught herself. Her eyes darted around the room, as if Liam might materialize and disapprove. Yeah, she said, her voice a little flat. I guess we were. She quickly closed the album and put it back in the box. That was it. That moment was a punch to the gut. The Sarah in that photo was gone, and Liam was the architect of her disappearance. This brings me to the twist, the thing that changed everything and led to me being in this awful position. Liam had a best man, a guy named David. David was, well, he was nice enough. A little awkward, very quiet. He worked with Liam and seemed to admire him immensely. I'd met him a few times at pre-wedding events, and we'd exchanged polite small talk. About 2 months ago, Liam threw an elaborate bachelor party. I know nothing about it, honestly, beyond what Sarah told me, a weekend in Vegas, boys being boys, no details. Fine. I didn't want details. A week after the bachelor party, I got a text. It was from David. Hey Maya, this is David. Liam's best man. Sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if you had a minute to talk. It's about Sarah. My stomach dropped. My immediate thought was that something terrible had happened to Liam. An accident? A health scare? I called him back immediately. David? Is everything okay? Is Liam alright? Liam's fine, he said, his voice hesitant. This is, a little sensitive. And I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I feel like I have to. For Sarah's sake. He then proceeded to tell me, in a very nervous, almost rehearsed tone, about the bachelor party. It wasn't just boys being boys. Liam, apparently, had taken things to an extreme. David described a private room in a high-end club, where Liam had not only hired escorts but had been incredibly hands-on with them, laughing and making lewd jokes while David, uncomfortable, tried to make himself invisible. He was bragging about it afterwards, David said, his voice almost a whisper. He was saying things like, got to get it out of my system before the ball and chain. Sarah would never know. He even said something about how Sarah was too vanilla for certain things, and that's why he needed outlets. I felt a cold rage building inside me. Are you sure about this, David? Really sure? Maya, I was there. I saw it. He even tried to get me to participate, and when I refused, he made some jokes about me being whipped by my girlfriend. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice tight. He sighed. Because I like Sarah. She's a really sweet person. And honestly, Liam, he's not who he pretends to be. He talks about her behind her back, makes these little disparaging comments. He thinks she's naive, that he can mold her. I've heard him tell his other friends how he's training her to be the perfect wife for his image. He paused. I know this is going to blow up. But I couldn't live with myself if I just stood by and let her marry him, knowing what I know. My mind was reeling. Training her. Too vanilla. It all clicked into place. The subtle changes, the self-policing, the way she seemed to shrink around him. It wasn't just my imagination. He was actively, deliberately breaking her down. And he was cheating, and planning to keep cheating. I thanked David, my voice numb. I told him I wouldn't reveal his name, and he seemed relieved. We hung up, and I just sat there, phone in hand, staring at the wall. My best friend, marrying a manipulative cheater who saw her as a project, not a partner. What was I supposed to do? Tell her? And how? Hey, your fiancé's best man just called me to tell me your husband-to-be is a cheating, condescending ass who thinks you're vanilla? She would hate me. She would accuse me of trying to sabotage her happiness, just like she always did when I pointed out his subtle flaws. I spent days agonizing. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The wedding was a month away. My conscience screamed at me. How could I stand by her side, smiling, knowing this? How could I let my best friend walk into a life of calculated deceit? I tried to talk to her one last time, subtly. We were at her bachelorette party, a tame affair, chosen by Liam, naturally. Sarah, I began, as we were having a quiet moment, are you truly, completely happy? No doubts, no second thoughts? She looked at me, her eyes a little tired from the planning. Of course, Maya. Why wouldn't I be? It's just. Liam can be a lot. Do you feel like you can be totally yourself with him? Her expression hardened. Here we go again. I knew you'd try something like this. You just can't stand to see me happy, can you? You're always looking for the worst in him, because you're still single and miserable. That accusation cut deep. It wasn't true, but it felt like a dagger. I shut down. I couldn't say anything more without giving away everything. The next week was the rehearsal dinner. It was a grand affair, held at an expensive restaurant. Everyone was there, Liam's intimidatingly perfect family, Sarah's beaming parents, all our mutual friends. Sarah looked beautiful, glowing, in a white dress that was a little too formal for a rehearsal but exactly what Liam would have chosen. I sat at a table with some other bridesmaids, trying to act normal. Liam was across the room, charming everyone, his arm around Sarah. He looked like the perfect fiancé. A knot of disgust tightened in my stomach. I looked at Sarah's parents, so proud, so happy. I looked at Sarah, oblivious, radiating joy. And I just broke. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked over to their table. Sarah looked up, smiling, thinking I was coming to congratulate them again. Liam gave me a polite, slightly wary smile. Excuse me, I said, my voice trembling slightly, but firm. I need to say something. Everyone went quiet. Sarah looked confused. Liam's smile faltered. Sarah, I said, looking directly into her eyes, you deserve to know the truth about the man you're about to marry. A ripple of murmuring went through the tables. Sarah's face went white. Maya, what are you doing? Liam hissed, trying to pull me aside. I shook him off. Liam, I said, turning to him, my voice colder now, tell everyone about your Vegas bachelor party. Specifically, tell them about the escorts you hired, and the things you said about Sarah being vanilla and needing outlets behind her back. The silence in the room was deafening. Sarah gasped, a small, choked sound. Liam's face went from pale to beet red. His eyes were wide with a mix of fury and panic. What are you talking about, Maya? He stammered, trying to laugh it off, but it sounded forced and hollow. This is completely unhinged. You're drunk. I'm not drunk, Liam, I countered, my voice clear. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because your best man, David, was there. He told me everything. How you bragged about cheating, how you mocked Sarah, how you talked about training her to be your perfect trophy wife. That word, training, seemed to hit Sarah the hardest. Her eyes, which had been darting between me and Liam, settled on him, wide with horror and a dawning understanding. Is this true, Liam? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Liam was speechless. He just stared at me, then at her, then at his parents, who looked absolutely mortified. Maya, you psycho, get out of here, he finally spat, attempting to recover some control. She's not a psycho, I said, stepping closer to Sarah, ignoring Liam entirely. She's my best friend, and she deserves someone who loves her, the real her. Not some manufactured version you're trying to build. Sarah's dad, a gentle man who rarely raised his voice, stood up. Liam, what is going on here? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. Liam, finally finding his voice, started babbling denials, accusations that I was jealous, that I was a bitter spinster, that I was making it all up. But the damage was done. Sarah wasn't looking at him with anger yet, just a profound, heartbreaking shock. The kind of shock that makes you realize your entire world has been a lie. Her mother put an arm around her, and Sarah finally broke, dissolving into silent tears. She didn't look at me, didn't look at Liam, just sobbed into her mother's shoulder. The room erupted. Liam's parents were shouting at me, demanding I leave. Sarah's parents were trying to comfort her while also glaring daggers at Liam. Other guests were buzzing, whispers filling the suddenly chaotic space. I stood there for a moment, the eye of the storm. I could feel the hatred radiating from Liam, the confusion and hurt from Sarah, and the disapproval from almost everyone else. I felt a perverse sense of calm. I had done it. I had blown up her perfect wedding, her perfect life. I walked out of the restaurant without another word. My phone started buzzing instantly, texts and calls from mutual friends, some furious, some confused. I ignored them all. I haven't heard from Sarah directly. Her mother texted me, a short, terse message, "Sarah needs space. This is not the time, Maya." I understand. I really do. I shattered her reality, and whether it was justified or not, the pain is real. Part of me feels an overwhelming sense of relief. I couldn't have lived with myself if I had stayed silent. I exposed a manipulative fraud. I potentially saved my best friend from a lifetime of unhappiness, of being trained into someone she wasn't. But then the self-doubt creeps in. What if I am the asshole? What if I should have told her privately? What if I just ruined her life, even if it was based on a lie? What if she never forgives me? What if Liam was just having a moment of weakness, and I overreacted? No, that's Liam's voice, the voice that tells Sarah she's immature for telling stories, that he's helping her be the best version of herself. I keep replaying the scene in my head. Sarah's face, the dawning horror, the tears. That image haunts me. Did I choose the right moment? The right way? Was it too cruel to do it so publicly? I think I needed to do it publicly. To make it undeniable, to make sure he couldn't charm his way out of it, or convince her I was lying. David's testimony, combined with Liam's utter inability to deny it, made it real. But the cost is everything. Our friendship, which has lasted for over 2 decades, is probably shattered. I sacrificed our bond for what I believed was her best interest. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I did the right thing, or if I was just a bitter, jealous friend who finally got her chance to tear down something beautiful. She said I didn't want her to be happy. Maybe, deep down, a part of me didn't want her to be happy with him. All I know is, the wedding is off. And I'm sitting here, alone, wondering if I just saved my best friend, or if I just became the villain in her story.